He felt like, since the closeness of Elmore County to Montgomery, that we would begin to have some massage parlors open up in Elmore County, and he wanted to make sure that they were regulated properly and licensed properly.
Senator, what are the similarities between this bill and the Montgomery County bill?
Just about the same. It's part of the Montgomery bill and the Huntsville bill.
Okay, did Sheriff Thrash indicate how he knew that the problem was growing in Elmore County?
No, he did not. As in the past, I've always worked with the law enforcement people in my district, and Sheriff Thrash is an excellent lawman, and I feel like whatever motives he had in asking for this, they were right.
What is the current standing of this legislation?
Bill is in Senate local legislation, and it hadn't been signed out yet.
What are the chances of it passing this special session?
Well, it's according to how long the session lasts. If the session ends fairly quickly, I don't look for it to pass during this session.
Beautiful.
Is your 67 good? Was it a good 67?
It was a good front nine. The back nine, I was just really, I guess you call it choking and trying to protect the lead.
Of course, playing good.
Played real easy yesterday. Just playing, Monty, the pro at this, said it was playing as tough as it played today. So scores will probably be higher, including mine.
Yeah, I am surprised. She's a very good player, hits the ball very hard, and I played well, and I was kind of lucky the first set. She was up 5-3, and I made some good shots and just played, I think, good pressure tennis right in there, and when we got to the tiebreaker, I played really well, and I think she might have been a little discouraged after that.
She's a very strong hitter, and you are not. Did you have a strategy to offset that strength?
Well, a big hitter like that relies on hitting big shots and hitting winners, and when I can get back her best shot, it kind of discourages her, and there's no...
The training of a volunteer military force has always worried some people, and since the inception of the all-volunteer force, some service branches have drastically changed their programs. WSFA TV's Clark Edwards, himself a former Marine, went back to look at the training now taking place at the Marine Corps, the nation's oldest all-volunteer service. Sort of an old salt looking at new brine. Based on that analogy, would you call one who intimidates elderly Marines an old salt shaker? Anyway, here's Clark's report.
The photos of David Douglas Duncan record the traditions and conflict of the Marine Corps. There is a mystique about Marines that few others understand. There are ceremonies honoring good work, like this Navy dental unit. There are also ceremonies that all Marines learn to have a great deal of respect for. That's the ceremony of the boot and buckle, inspection. Inspections begin early in the training of Marines, as they have for years. The brass must shine without fingerprint, so do the boots. One of the reasons there are so many inspections is to build pride. Pride in achieving, in passing, and in getting the drill instructor to move down the line without any hassle over your gear. That hasn't changed any over all the years, and over the years the exercise seemed to have worked, for there are few men and women who were Marines who are not now very proud and very humble, even though it is hard to be so. Slogans have always been a dominant feature around training bases. There used to be a lot more of them than there are now. There is something totally new. It's called free time. Time to watch TV, write letters, polish boots, anything, for 1 hour. After the hour, it's back to routine. The physical part of being a Marine training has always been difficult, too much for many, but most eventually make it and over the top. There have always been obstacle courses, some bigger and tougher than others. The more you do it, the easier it becomes, some say. I didn't think so. Those poles seemed to grow taller at night when no one was looking. These new Marines didn't think it was getting any easier with practice either. There seems to have been an obsession with most obstacle course makers with climbing near impossible poles and swinging over and through things. The swinging part isn't so bad if you make it the first time. Falling isn't so bad if you fall straight down. If you miss, however, you dive head first into the opposite bank. Then you get to do it again. In the Marine Corps, pain is a positive teacher. Most don't miss twice. Climbing ropes is stock and trade stuff for Marines who must depend on the ships of the Navy for transport much of the time. This hasn't changed much over the years. The ropes are still made about 10 feet longer than you think you can climb. Then there's that mast to climb with the rope to slide down to escape it all. Top of that mast, by the way, is 50 feet in the air. After the mast, the heights don't bother you, so you move on to the slide for life, which is a misnomer, since if you fall, you just get wet. But it sounds more Marine-ish that way. It may not look all that difficult until you think about how long you're on that rope, upside down, how long you must coordinate your hand and foot movements while supporting all of your weight. One Marine recruit told me very confidentially that on very hot days, a lot of young men seem to fall into the cool water of the pool below. Marines old and new have always had to cope with the hardware of the military. The primary hardware for the Marine is the rifle. He must qualify, he must be good, or he'll likely be dead if he's ever in combat. The confidence course is just that. It serves to build individual confidence in being able to do something. A good lesson for young men. In fact, most Marine physical training is geared toward building the person in physical and mental aptitudes. Other services have called the Marine Corps an anachronism, foot soldiers in the age of nuclear missiles. Well, that may be true, but who else will be there to stop the missiles on the ground, preventing those launch crews from ever sending them off in the first place? A friend and former Marine once looked back on his days in the Corps and remarked that we, Marines, were the last of the pure warriors. Romanticism and mystique, perhaps. One thing is certain, the Marine Corps has a tendency to train the timidity out of you, and one way they do that is to put a football helmet on you, give you a stick with a pad on the end, and put you in a pit with 2 other armed men, and an order given, let's see who can get out. It's called pugil sticks. Really, it's more fun and less painful than it looks. The Marine Corps, being a Marine, are both definitions of a struggle. The stark reality of military life in David Douglas Duncan's photographs. An anachronism? Maybe. The bigger-than-life tales of the Corps? Well, it's hard to be humble. The Marine Corps training has changed very little the past 10 to 15 years. The greatest single concern is still to train the man to stay alive. As an old salt, I'd say the old Corps and its new brine are coming along well. Clark Edwards, Parris Island, South Carolina, Marine Corps Recruit Training Depot.
I don't see any way. He ain't gonna show up. So he's tired. He's gone.
We was talking to him. He told me way back. Yeah, we was talking to him. And we talked to him and he signed.
I can't, do you think that the man never called him this morning?
Well, I called him and asked him to call him.
I know.
He said he would. And that's all I can do.
This is the only one I see.
Here's one sentence to him, promised to open on all the issues if I appoint his law partner judge. That's something out of conscience.
That's it.
But let's see now. That's 16. Now, I talked with him, but then we was talking to him.
No, he said, he's already told you he wasn't gonna sign the petition.
He won't, but he will when he gets here. This one might, and if this man can talk to him and get him to,
Is there anybody else you know we might call on him?
I don't know,
That's gonna be so close. I think this will, it's something, yeah, we will, point this out. We're gonna have to do that. We'll get our folks together. That's gonna be the question. I don't know, we'll try. That's gonna be the problem. We're just gonna have to, we get some of our folks together, and this is delivered.
somebody needs to.
I do think that we give them some time, but I think it'll have a lot more impact. But I think this is the best thing.
get a good grocery store.
The biggest dealers in that camp came out of A030. They're on.
Well, the rest.
Yeah, right. You getting him in? He's better than if you break them all, break it better.
He will be treated as any other individual. He certainly is not just another inmate, because the fact that you are all here today puts him in a special category. But I don't view him with any particular concern.
Get the young man right there. Treat him. Will they accept him like they would anybody else, you think?
I guess he'll be treated just like any other convict or inmate. That's the way you should be treated. No special purpose, because none of us here, we receive it. We just treated just ordinary men and inmates that's serving time for crimes that we have been convicted for.
Mr. Mitchell?
No, I don't believe there will be any problems in that respect. We are concerned about his safety, of course, but because he is at this type of a facility, we feel that he is less likely to encounter anyone who would be the type of individual to harm him physically. If a man had that type of potential, he would not be confined at this camp.
What kind of lodgings will Mr. Mitchell have? Will his be different from the other inmates?
No, he will be in one of 7 single-story stucco-faced dormitories. They have between 43 and 47 men in them. They are fixed with cubicles, which give some sort of semblance of privacy. And where he is housed when he comes in will depend on which unit has an empty bed.
Well, my reaction is it's too bad he had to come here, but if he did come here, as he will, he couldn't have picked a better place. If he picked it, I mean, he didn't pick it, but you couldn't find a better place to come at the full time, to my estimation.
How long do you have to go?
September. So I've just been here a short while, so I don't know too much about the camp, the other people's reactions. But so far, it's all been good.
We're not going to have programs. John Mitchell will not be the only Watergate figure to serve his sentence here. Fred LaRue and Charles Colson spent time here at Maxwell, and federal prison authorities say they don't expect the 63-year-old ex-attorney general to have any problems as long as he obeys the rules. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the federal prison camp on Maxwell Air Force Base.
General Gillum, what is your impression at this point after 4 months as public safety director of the strong points within the fire department and the police department here in the city of Montgomery?
Well, let's take the fire department first, and recognizing that 4 months hardly makes me an expert, but it's been a pretty busy 4 months. I've had sort of a forced feeding, so to speak, and I've gotten what I think is a pretty good feel. I feel rather comfortable in the job now. Fire department, I think Montgomery has an excellent fire department, based on all the rating systems used throughout the country to rate fire departments and the performance and the results. We seem to be doing pretty well in the fire department business. I'm not aware of any really critical problems in the fire department beyond the periodic unhappiness over pay that I think people are well aware of. We have some rather old equipment, but indications are we'll be able to replace that on schedule, and we're not in critical shape for equipment by a long shot. By the same token, we have some good equipment. The police department does have problems at the present time that are perhaps a little more severe because we're short of people. We're short, as of this morning, 17 policemen. If you want to go on what I understand national standards prescribe, we're short about 67 policemen. In the police department, it's sort of good news and bad news. The bad news, there is continued unhappiness about pay. And $82.45 plus the $300 hazard pay just doesn't make it too easy to compete in today's market for people doing the sorts of job a policeman's called on to do. So if there's unhappiness, and there is some, I'm sure, it stems primarily from that. The problem in Montgomery today is the same as it is throughout the country. We're getting stolen blind. And we don't have enough people to put the same amount of attention on a CB radio or a stolen bicycle, or put as much as we would like to put, or a car getting ripped off at one of the motels, which happens nightly. We have to concentrate on the big things.
Is that we're not going to pass this utility legislation, and they can rest at ease that a fine group of young people are going to be down here learning a little something about government, and the milkshakes over at McDonald's or whatever, and while the cost of your new automobile has just run your new car that you got for graduation on, that's asphalt, flatbeds. That cost us $6.94 a ton. $5.94 a ton. And in 5 years' time, 3 times less asphalt than it will today, gentlemen. That's what it says. Now, instead of an administration jumping up and down and whooping and hollering about something that's not worth a plug nickel, they ought to be set down and trying to find a way to get us out of the problems that we got with the highway system in this state.
I don't feel that there is a threat of cloture. Only 15 people have signed the petition for cloture. It takes 23 senators to invoke cloture, and I've had assurance from at least 15 that they will not invoke cloture. I don't know how long the filibuster will go. We'll go until midnight if necessary. There's 9 of us that are talking, and each one of us could take an hour between now and midnight and talk it out. I think it's an act of futility for the governor's forces to keep us in session. We ought to go ahead and pass the court bill and some of these other legislation that could be passed and ought to be passed. I'm very hopeful that they will admit the package is dead and go ahead and let us act on some other legislation that should be passed. I'm in pretty good health, and there's only about 7 or 8 hours left, and wouldn't be any problem one man talking that out. And they would have to invoke cloture to pass the bills, and cloture is a very serious matter, and I don't believe the Senate's going to invoke cloture. They never have.
You don't think these senators will shut another senator up? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I think the issues are so important and they have such an impact on the people of Alabama, and the people realize that in the Senate, that they're going to respect the rights of the minority in this case and let us present our case and and also kill those bills. That's the way the Constitution of Alabama is set up. The governor wants to ignore the law and wants to ignore the constitutions at times, but that's what we have to operate under. We all ought to, rules and the law ought to be applied equally to everybody. The governor doesn't take that position. He wants to use the law and the Constitution when it benefits him and then ignore it when it doesn't. And I think the members of this Senate feel like that the rules and the Constitution ought to be applied to everybody equally, and I think that's the reason cloture won't be invoked.
The possibilities of passage or, of course, dimming as the day goes on. However, the only hope is that we invoke cloture. We feel that we will be able to bring about a vote on the cloture matter at some time, which will stop the filibuster sometime later in the day, or a vote which would provide for the stopping the filibuster. It requires 18 names on a petition before you can even vote to invoke cloture, and we feel certainly we'll be able to bring about a vote or cause a vote to be taken at some later time.
How close are you to having these 18 votes?
We feel that we have the 18 people committed to the petition.
Night, practically every night, and I don't know when I've been in, although it looks like we've got one of the time and place.
You know, that has been strange all this week that we're going to have a quorum call every hour.
That's very well done, Senator Little. You're learning. You're watching Senator Fine.
Mr. President, I call your attention to the clock.
Well, gentlemen, you are adjourned.
All right.
Sine die. Do I hear a motion to sine die?
No!
Say aye. All opposed, no? No! The ayes have. You are adjourned.
Well, I hope never. I think special sessions by and large can be avoided and should be avoided. I realize that the unemployment compensation matter is yet to be determined, but here again, this is something that should have been handled very easily in the regular session of the legislature. It really should have been handled in this session that we've just completed tonight, and I think if you'll check, you'll find that the Senate passed this bill, and the bill could have easily been accepted in the House and passed by the House. I believe that another special session would be a waste of money insofar as the people of Alabama are concerned, unless there's some cooperative spirit between the two houses of the legislature and the governor's office concerning the call for the next session. And I would hope that some preparation would be made for the next session rather than maybe the approach that was used in this session.
And then he picked up the books and courts. I was very satisfied, and also I was very gratified that it was the legislature that actually took the action to solve this particular crisis. As a matter of fact, we've had in the state of Alabama a number of crises in government, and so many times it has not been solved in this fashion. But in this case, in a special session that required a 2/3 vote, the legislature took the appropriate action to keep our courts in Alabama open.